Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and you join me here at Prim, so Vicky and Dan's Casino and the Bison Steve there. And the Mojave Express building right here. So, today we are going to be talking about the humble Eyebot, which is a Robco product and a compact little thing. So, they were kind of designed to be used for all kinds of things, but so the main function really was to be mobile radios to transmit news bulletins and presidential addresses wherever they went, and advertising, of course, because capitalism doesn't rest. And they also did have some facial and auditory recognition features, so they could be used for surveillance and security. And in the post-war era, the Enclave had a project to create a new advanced Eyebot called the Duraframe Eyebot. The program was eventually scrapped, so there's only one prototype left. In the capital wasteland, you can find Eyebots floating around, blaring out the Enclave radio as the perfect propaganda machine for President John Henry Eden. So, in terms of their construction, so we're here, you know, if you played Fallout New Vegas, you know exactly who this is. This is Eddie, or EDE, a potential companion. But they're small, kind of round robots, and they have a kind of grill and speaker on the front, and several antennae to pick up radio signals, broadcasts, and things. They have kind of limited defences. They usually have like a zapper or a kind of laser with which to defend themselves. The prototype Duraframe Eyebots are better armoured, and they have like a miniature Tesla cannon kind of a thing. And you do encounter some in the Divide which have medical and repair capabilities as well. But the Eyebots are the weakest of the robot kinds in Fallout, with the exception of this guy here. I mean, you do encounter them in pretty much all the games. So in Fallout and Fallout 2, you can encounter floating Eyebots in pre-war military facilities, where they act as kind of sentries. So they're not really there to do a lot of damage, but they're there to spot enemies. And then that alerts the other security systems. And in Fallout 3, you do find them floating about the wasteland and hanging around near Enclave encampments. They're rarely hostile unless they're attacked or you're near the Enclave camp and they're hostile to you then. And they cheerfully play the Enclave radio as they buzz about. They do explode upon death, usually, so if you do destroy one, there is a chance that an Enclave vertebrate will turn up to get revenge for the little bot. And this is affected by your luck skill, so if you've got lower luck in your special stats, then it's more likely for that to happen, which is interesting. And there's also a random encounter where two Wastelanders have one that doesn't seem to be working right, and they're kind of talking about it. And then in Fallout 4, you have one that kind of buzzes around in Diamond City, playing Diamond City radio. And you do occasionally encounter them elsewhere in the wasteland. There's the one that is advertising employment opportunities at Cambridge Polymer Labs, which does lead you on to a fun little quest where you can get some unique power armour, or a unique power armour piece I should say. And the Mechanist also uses them to share their message with the Wastes. If you have Automatron DLC, there's also Nuka-Cola themed ones at Nuka World, especially in the space area of Nuka World. So they are found quite commonly around the place. But don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Fallout New Vegas. You know, there's a reason that I'm making this video in Fallout New Vegas. There's a couple of interesting ones that we can come across. So if you have the Lonesome Road DLC, and if you don't have it, you should get it, because it's really, really good. But in that one, we can find posters about Ralphie. So I'll put a copy of the poster up on screen for you here. So Ralphie was an Eyebot that was featured in a pre-war TV show. And Ralphie escapes a military installation and goes on an incredible odyssey while evading capture. And this TV show aired every Saturday on Vault-Tec Channel 9, because Vault-Tec had, you know, their own TV channel or channels. But you can see posters for the show all over the Divide and Lonesome Road, and Eddie watched tapes of the show when it stopped at a hidden Enclave outpost in Chicago for repairs. So that's who we're going to talk about now. So Eddie here is the last prototype of the Duraframe Eyebot program. It was built at Adams Air Force Base around 2275 by Dr. Whitley. And the program ended up being dropped because of the war the Enclave were fighting against the Brotherhood of Steel in the capital Wasteland. The Enclave pushed all the resources into the Hellfire power armour development instead. Dr. Whitley wasn't too happy about this and uploaded data from pre-war energy research from Poseidon Energy and the Duraframe research into the little robot and sent it to Navarro. Apparently he was unaware that Navarro had been destroyed by the NCR. So let's have a look here. So you find Eddie here in Prim. So Eddie ended up in the Mojave after being shot at by a raider, which you can see in the trailer for Fallout New Vegas. And apparently, if you have sufficient skill and you hear the recording of it from Eddie, you can intuit that it was hand-loaded .308 ammo that was used, which is an interesting one. So we ended up deactivated here and was picked up by a courier and brought to Johnson Nash at the Mojave Express. So we have the option of repairing him. So this is an advanced model robot with a reinforced frame. It's well weathered and appears to have seen a good bit of action. There's very little in the way of serious damage, so we can try to fix it. And we can use signs. Okay, there we go. So you do have to have the right kind of science and repair skills to potentially... Hello! So, yeah, companion protocol begin. And we get the enhanced sensors perk from Eddie. And this is additional. We'll talk about this in a second. But yeah, so Eddie is now a companion. It's just like a robot puppy really in terms of personality, but you can unlock Eddie's backstory through memories that are brought up. There's keywords that various NPCs can say when you have a conversation with them while Eddie's your companion, and that brings up audio logs from Dr. Whitley about what happened. So I will let those play for you here, and then we'll get back to talking about the other Eddie.
Subject E, diagnosis complete. Begin recording. My name is Whitley. I'm a researcher at Adams Air Force Base. Until recently, I was in charge of the Duraframe reinforcement project for the combat model Eyebots. Eyebot Duraframe Subject E is both the prototype and the last functional model in this test group. I was prepared to make several significant upgrades to the machines. However, as the project was cancelled and all Duraframe assets are being diverted to Hellfire armor, I am sending this model to the Navarro outpost. If you're listening to this log from one of our Enclave outposts in Chicago, give this unit whatever repairs it needs so it can continue to Navarro. Download complete. Begin recording. Navarro Outpost scientists, I am glad that EDE has reached you. You will find several data banks of information on this machine. Please handle this information with the utmost care, as it represents the sum total of the results of my research on the Duraframe Eyebots. There are also several data banks with information on my research into Poseidon Energy, and some projects they were working on in the Mojave area.
There we go. So yeah, interesting little kind of backstory to this little robot, but there is actually more to it than that. So if you have Lonesome Road and you go into the Divide, then you find another version of Eddie, who is lying dormant in the Hopeville missile silo bunker. And the path to Lonesome Road actually isn't too far away from where we are right now, so it's here at the canyon wreckage, so it's just over there from Prim, so quite close, but it is a DLC that you should probably do kind of later in the game. The enemies in there are pretty dangerous, but the one in Hopeville was created by the automatic engineering functions of the base as a copy of the original. And essentially what happened is that the issues in the divide, so it's all kind of stormy and there's a lot of radiation around and the terrain's all damaged and things from nuclear explosions. So what happened was that the Eddie was found and was sent with the courier, i.e. your player character, to deliver it to the area that's now the divide. And what happened is that it activated and transmitted launch codes to the nuclear missile silos, but the doors were sealed that let the missiles actually launch, so they all detonated underground, which caused all the damage to the terrain and caused the dust storms and things that are plaguing the area. So the intact systems basically made a copy of Eddie, as well as a bunch of other Eyebots that were for maintenance and for medical treatment. So the one that you meet in the divide is a bit more expressive and emotional because it wasn't damaged like this little guy was, you know, because it was made there and it was kept safe, whereas this guy got shot. So you know, it's kind of interesting one, and it gets excited about the Ralphie poster, so it is one of the kind of unmarked quests, or the little kind of achievement things in the game, is to find all the Ralphie posters in the divide. And Eddie gets quite excited, it plays a bit of the theme tune and things going into battle. It's freaking adorable. But it can also act as a reloading bench and a workbench. So you can basically have a mobile workbench and reloading bench wherever you go, which is quite useful. And that's added anything that kind of happens to the Eddie and the divide gets transmitted to this one, so that you can access all the same things with Eddie as a companion in the Mojave. And that includes the upgrades that you can find. So in the divide, there's 5 kind of broken Eyebots that you can find, and you can take circuitry from them, and that gives some upgrades to Eddie to make him better in battle and all that kind of thing, which is pretty cool. And again, all those benefits are passed on to this version as well, which is really, really cool. I have to say, Eddie is one of my favourite companions. It's one of the first ones that you're going to come across as well when you're playing through the main story. But one of my favourites is an adorable little robot. It's just like a puppy to my mind. It feels like having a puppy. And the story is very, very interesting. And I don't know what it is with some of these Enclave scientists that get too attached to their test subjects and end up defecting, because, you know, Dr. Whitley did that with Eddie, and Siggy Wilzig in the TV show did the same with CX404, the dog, which is just really quite funny. And I do like the normal ones, like, you know, you've got the little one that just bumbles about in Springvale playing the radio and things, and it's just kind of there. It's a fun little addition. One thing I'm not sure of is exactly how they fly. You know, I don't know, because there's no obvious kind of thrusters or anything, but there must obviously be something that makes it fly, but I don't really know exactly. There's not really much information on what it is that makes them. But, you know, I do kind of wonder about, like, you know, pre-war using them as like mobile radios. Like, if your favourite song was on the radio, would you have to just follow the robot so that you could hear the whole thing? It's kind of interesting, but you know, and he's managed to find himself a license plate that has his name on it, which is cute. And then I think that's an honour student. That's like a bumper sticker for Roosevelt Academy or something. So maybe picked that up while he was still in the Mojave Wasteland. Yeah, but it's a bit of a quick one, this one. There's not a lot of kind of variants or anything. There's no kind of horrific backstory involving cutting brains out of people or anything like that. But, you know, the Eyebots they're a fun little addition, and not every robot has to be a, you know, huge doom robot that's really dangerous. the way robotics happened in the Fallout universe is that, you know, most of them were made to be useful in some way to society, and it wasn't all just about security and about using them in the war. That, you know, we obviously with the Mr. Handies, the Miss Nannies, using them as domestic robots, and then these little guys who could be kind of security, but they weren't really meant for combat in that sense. And then the Enclave trying to kind of improve on them, and, you know, they probably could have made them a lot more formidable if they didn't decide to drop that project and replace it with the Hellfire armour, because they thought that's what was going to help them turn the tide against the Brotherhood of Steel, especially in the face of, you know, them having to deal with Liberty Prime and that kind of thing. So yeah, very interesting little one. And I say Eddie is one of my favourite companions in Fallout New Vegas. I think all the companions in this game are great and they're very, very interesting, but Eddie's just like a little robot puppy and I love him, and yeah, happy to have you on board. And I say I didn't really go into too much with the Lonesome Road other than the stuff about the robot, but a lot of the backstory of that and what happened in the Divide that you are apparently responsible for, it's a big and interesting topic, and Ulysses himself I think is a very interesting topic. So throughout that DLC, Ulysses actually speaks to you through the robot, so he can transmit himself to the robot to speak to you and to control it remotely in the end as well. And Ulysses himself was a fascinating character. I think he was supposed to be originally, he was planned to be a companion as well, like a Legion aligned companion, because there isn't really one in the game, and that was the role that he was supposed to fill, but it was kind of cut out of the base game for some reason, so then he was put into the final DLC, The Lonesome Road, which is sort of story-wise, it's supposed to be kind of the last one that you do. It is definitely designed for kind of late game, but, you know, there's a lot of kind of interesting stuff there, but at least you get to have a cute little robot companion through most of it. So let me know what you think. I say I don't always like travelling with companions in Fallout, but Eddie is a favourite of mine, I have to say. Yeah, it's quite fun. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will catch you all next time. Bye.